Welcome back to High Street Matters, a podcast from Bira, the British Independent Retailers Association. My name is Claire Leigh. I'm a former shop owner myself, so I know firsthand the challenges independent retailers face every day. In today's episode, we're exploring a topic that's generating huge excitement and perhaps a bit of apprehension too: artificial intelligence in retail. Many independent retailers might think AI is only for the big chains with massive budgets and technical teams, but the truth is AI tools are becoming increasingly accessible, and they could be the key to helping small retailers compete more effectively than ever before. We're going to explore what AI actually means for independent retailers in practical terms, how it can help you work smarter rather than harder, and crucially, how you can start using AI tools without needing a computer science degree or breaking the bank. Today, I'm joined by Andrew Goodacre, CEO of Bira, who champions independent retailers every day across Britain, Melissa Minkow, Global Director of Retail Strategy and Insights at CI&T, who we're delighted to welcome back to the podcast after her insights on cyber security, and Thomas Akintan, co-founder of Avalon Insights, a research-led AI training and consulting company who specializes in helping SMEs innovate with AI. So I'd like to start with you, Thomas. For those listeners who might not be familiar with your work, can you tell us a bit about Avalon Insights and why you're so passionate about helping small businesses with AI?
Thank you very much, Claire. So yes, my name's Thomas Akintan, and I'm one of the co-founders of Avalon Insights. And we're a human-centered AI research and training company. I want to underline the word human, because although we work in the AI space, we're still very much led by humans, and we live in a human world. And it's important that we keep the human in anything to do with AI. So we do a few things. One of the main things we do is just get people upskilled on how they can use AI for like simple stuff in their business, whether that's marketing, whether that's sales. We kind of do workshops online, or we do workshops in person with different companies. The second thing we do is research. So we have our own research team. We conduct primary research on how AI is being adopted for businesses. And the last thing we do is consulting to make sure people are safe when they're using AI.
Brilliant, thank you. And Melissa, it's wonderful to have you back on High Street Matters. Since we last spoke about cybersecurity, AI has been developing at an incredible pace. From your perspective as a retail futurist, I mean, what's changed in the retail AI landscape even in the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, everything is constantly changing in this space, which is why it's so fun to keep up with, because retail as an industry tends to be a little bit slower moving when you think about consumer behaviors. I always like to say we shop the way people used to shop a lot of times in ancient Mesopotamian marketplaces. So the fact that now we have all these AI tools at our fingertips is real change that is happening really quickly. And in fact, we conducted a survey at CI&T among 2,000 UK and I consumers, and we found that 61% of participants said they have used AI tools when shopping, and 53% told us they're doing so often or very often. So consumers are embracing this technology, and retailers are leveraging it in many more ways than they were previously able. And, you know, AI itself is a really broad umbrella term, but now there's generative AI, there's agentic AI, and we can kind of get into those different definitions, but there's just so many use cases expanding every day.
Amazing, thank you. And Andrew, when you talk to Bira members about AI, what's the general sentiment? I mean, are they excited, skeptical, or perhaps a bit overwhelmed?
Well, I mean, we have a huge range of members, a very diverse group of people who run shops on British high streets, and there is all those reactions, Claire. There's typically, as we always find with any new technology in any sector, there are those who really want to understand it, what marketing people would call the early adopters, and we have those, and people talk about that AI and using AI very enthusiastically. And there's others who really have what might be called technology angst. And it's not just AI, they struggled with online, social media, the tools that we've been using now for a few years. So I think there's full range of concerns and hopes and fears exist within the independent retail aspect of it. I think the other challenge we need to overcome is making people believe this isn't technology that's only for the large companies, large businesses we have. There's a lot more in AI that it's applicable to the smaller retailers.
Great, thank you. And Thomas, let's address the elephant in the room. When independent retailers hear AI, many may think it's too technical, too expensive, or just simply not relevant to their business. I mean, what would you say to that?
Yeah, good point. And yes, absolutely, let's address the elephant in the room. So first of all, AI isn't something that technical. I know that's what it's being pushed as. And actually, it can be used very applicably for small businesses. In fact, we do a lot of research and we do a lot of work with small businesses. And they're the people that can benefit the most from this. Why? Because it's affordable. It allows them to kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting that previously would have cost a lot of money. So for example, something like maybe a marketing campaign where they would have to spend a lot of money to go through a whole process to maybe create an infographic for a new product. I mean, there's AI tools now that can make an infographic in like a minute or two that are like almost 90% as close as you want to get it. Of course, it might not take it the whole way there, and very rarely does AI take it the whole way there, but at least it can do a lot of the heavy lifting for relatively low prices. So I would say that AI isn't just something that big companies should be using. It's something small companies can adopt in small ways and then move along as the time progresses.
Brilliant, thank you. And Melissa, what you mentioned agentic AI and personal shoppers with AI as something that you're particularly interested, excited about. I mean, can you explain in sort of practical terms what that means for an independent retailer and perhaps what agentic AI means as well?
Yeah, because there's a lot of terminology thrown around here. There's generative AI, as I mentioned before, and that's really just advanced search capabilities. So that's when we all type into a third party, like a ChatGPT, for example, platform, a descriptive question. It can answer it using an abundance of existing information in creative and new ways. That's the generative part of the AI. Agentic AI is an agent that operates autonomously and leverages past data, but it makes decisions on a consumer's behalf, for example, whether that's recommending, it's really more actually making purchases for the consumer, but some retailers do just define it as making those recommendations. So there's a little bit of a gray line in the industry. We at CI&T do define it as a digital assistant that could order products for you in a category you choose based on past purchase history, as well as criteria you've set for it. So when we're doing our survey, that's how we define it. But a lot of the industry and retailers are just defining it as more of those generative AI search engines. But as Thomas previously mentioned, AI in general can be very basic, and it really can just be used to identify patterns and help retailers when it comes to enabling decision making and just optimizing the data that they're collecting. So there's a lot of different formats regarding AI. Agentic AI in particular is kind of the frontier that I think a lot of retailers are most excited about, because it's about consumers getting information and very quickly turning that into a purchase. But at the end of the day, generative AI is the main format that we're seeing at the moment. But there are just so many retailers already leveraging this technology in different ways. So, and smaller retailers absolutely are primed for it, to Thomas's point, in very scalable, affordable ways. Just they're already collecting all this data, and it's a very affordable way to leverage that data in the most optimized way.
I mean, I just, out of interest, I'm not sure what category this falls into, but I bought from a lovely brand over Christmas. I won't mention their name, but they sent me a video on email to welcome me and explain the benefits of their product. And they claimed the video had been made just for me. But when I listened to it, it was clearly using AI to add my name in. There was a sort of blurred sort of Claire into the introduction. And I didn't mind them using AI, but I guess I didn't like them claiming that it was made especially for me, which clearly to me wasn't very authentic. So I guess authenticity is perhaps also part of the picture.
Yeah, I to jump in there actually on that. Like, I think that's probably one of the main things when it comes to AI is that A lot of people are worried about the authenticity of it and where it's coming from. And I mean, there definitely needs to be some laws around like what's AI generated and what's not. So that's just something I wanted to put out there. Like, I mean, as a company, we focus on the ethical use of AI. So like, if something's AI generated, we just want people to know. It's not like we're deceiving them. And it's nothing wrong if something is AI generated. In fact,
exactly.
the stuff that we want AI to do are the things that are heavy lifting. So I just want to put that out there in terms of the ethical use of it.
Thank you, Thomas, because I just throw that example in, but I just found it very interesting. So Andrew, from Bira's perspective, how could AI help independent retailers compete? You mentioned about this, about against the larger chains, the online giants. What would you say is the competitive advantage here for them? Oh, I think your mic's off, Andrew.
Apologise there. I think Thomas and Melissa, both Thomas and Melissa have already clearly explained that AI is really accessible. And it's this accessible technology that allows smaller companies, smaller business owners to take advantage of it. And it's a sort of technology that I think maybe would have previously required a huge amount of investment. When we think about internet shopping when it started, and the investment that the likes of the large online players have made over the years, AI is almost doing that for low money or minimal amounts of investment and in such a short amount of time. And that concept of less investment, short time scale to get the kind of impact that it's taken companies years to build up means that small companies can start to compete. And I would also say that the focus is naturally on creative AI, generative AI, because that's where it started when ChatGPT came to the fore and people were able to write letters, do exams, whatever the use was. We all saw the power of this technology. What we are seeing from many of our members is that they're able to use it to save time. One of the biggest challenges any business owner has, and you know this, Claire, you've run your own business, time is a premium. You spend your time working in your business, you spend your time managing your customers, managing your stock, managing your accounts. And AI technology can actually help and does help people achieve better there. So we are seeing technology used to manage stock holding. We're using AI to manage our accounts processes. We're using AI to create social media management and save time in doing so. And I think it's those areas as well, almost behind the scenes that the consumer doesn't see immediately, where we improve efficiencies of running the business, which is a real challenge for high street businesses in any case. But also then it gives us more time to focus on the consumers using this AI technology to do so.
Brilliant. Yeah, I can't tell you how much I wish that they'd had AI around when I had my shop. It would have saved so much time. So Thomas, for a retailer who's, say, never used AI before, where should they start? I mean, what are the quick wins that could make a real difference to their business?
Yeah, good question. And just bouncing off what Melissa said, like they're very simple wins and just start with the basics. So, I mean, most people know about ChatGPT. That's probably a really good place to start. I mean, you can use ChatGPT for idea generations. You can use it for product descriptions. That's probably a first starting point. After that, you can also look at other tools. I mean, personally, I use tools like Claude. Claude AI is really good for idea generation, strategy, and also data insight. So just going off what Andrew said before, like I know when AI first came out, it was more about generating stuff. But now a lot of the research that we're seeing is people want, like, they've got data already and like numbers, and they want to make sense of it because previously they just had it sitting somewhere in, like, I don't know, Google Drive or something. But it's now like starting to bring life to old data, to old projects, to products, to sales, to help them forecast. And there are ways you can use different tools for that. I mean, Claude is another sort of tool. So I'd start with something like ChatGPT, Claude. And then once you're comfortable with those, then you can look to expand on other tools that might help you in particular ways. So I think those are the first two to start with.
Yeah, and I think personally experience with ChatGPT is it's so simple. You know, you just start with a query, then you learn it can it can learn things for you and it can change things. You can just add a more specific bit in and you get far better information out. It's quite common sense, actually, I've found with it. So Melissa, your research shows what consumers actually want from AI in retail. The top priorities were saving time at 63%, making it easier to find products at 61%, and getting better prices at 58%, which sounds kind of exactly what independent retailers are already trying to do, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody has kind of the same goals in retail, which is to better understand your consumer and to convert them more easily, more efficiently. And AI is a perfect tool for doing that and for driving efficiencies in doing those things. I do also want to call back really quickly what Thomas was talking about with respect to transparency and the example, Claire, you brought up of that retailer saying it knew you, but clearly not really, and leveraging AI to do that. And we also do hear from consumers that their primary concerns with AI when retailers are implementing it is, one, privacy, and then two, being either upsold or cross-sold and being kind of pushed into spending more money or some biased recommendations. So those are just some pitfalls that a lot of retailers are still navigating. And that's why, because we are still in the early phases, you're getting some of these emails where you have these almost auto-generated, personalized content pieces that are not resonant and also make you feel a little weird and uncomfortable. So privacy is definitely something that still needs to be navigated. And to Thomas's point, transparency and clear communication with that is really key on behalf of both large and independent retailers. But yeah, I mean, these are all the goals, is just to better understand your consumer and to help drive efficiencies in their search process and what they're looking for. And so it's really just about kind of that iterative capability that AI affords. Like you were saying, you can get more and more specific with your search criteria with these generative AI engines and conduct a deep level of research, because we've also seen in our consumer insights information that consumers have really prioritized research over discovery now when they're shopping. And that's what AI enables them to do, is conduct a lot more research and to feel really well informed when making purchase decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I use ChatGPT for buying products if I'm looking in a sale or I'm looking to see if something's going to go in a sale. Like I used it for Black Friday and checked, oh, does this brand generally go into sale? When do they go into sale? Which bits will this brand, will this part of their range go into the sale? It's fascinating what can come back and what information they can give you on that. So Melissa, you work with major retailers, but you also understand the independent retail space. So what AI applications are you seeing in big retail that could actually translate really well to small independent shops?
Yeah, we have a client right now that we're leveraging AI with them so that they can merchandise a lot more efficiently and a lot faster. So we can use AI to scan the labels of the products and to understand certain patterns and then really quickly manage that inventory and keep track of it in the stock cycle. So inventory management is huge where it's driving efficiencies. And that's something that can be especially time consuming for independent retailers as well. And they can leverage this type of technology. Similarly to what Thomas talked about before, the marketing copy is a really easy opportunity where you can be leveraging AI to at least start and kind of get that initial process off the ground. And then it can be tweaked and updated by a human, and kind of those nuanced layers can very easily be added by the employee. But it's great to use AI as kind of a launch pad sometimes for marketing materials. Answering customer service issues, which ends up being really time consuming for independent retailers. It's very easy to leverage AI in that area. Optimizing staff schedules, that's another place where there's a lot of time kind of spent annoyingly for independent retailers on just moving employees' schedules around based on their hours of availability, and AI can come in handy there for sure as well.
That's really interesting. I would have loved that as well. So Andrew, one concern we often hear about with AI is job displacement. Are independent retailers worried that AI might replace staff or change the nature of retail jobs?
I think there's a natural concern there because independent retailers are caring employers, responsible employers. So, I think that they enjoy having that personal service in their shops. But we've seen how expensive employing people is these days, and I've referenced a couple of times that the business model of running a shop on a high street is under severe pressure, and employment is one of those biggest costs that a business will have. And so it's quite natural, I think, for any business, especially retail businesses, to always look to be more efficient and more productive. That may mean less people involved with their business. It may mean less people in the back office as opposed to the front of house. It'll be interesting to see where they decide to make those changes. But I think those changes are inevitable. Ultimately, though, and I look across at seeing what's happening on the big retail side, where we've seen technology come into force an awful lot over the last few years in the area of customer service. The changes are being made on the back office. They're losing people at the management level because AI is more efficient at creating systems to control their branches. And I think with independent retail, we'll see the same thing happen. There still is a place for personal service, people speaking to people, dealing with people, and making people comfortable with the purchase they're taking from their shop. And let's not forget that 2/3 of all products are still bought in shops. So that's the still true today, even despite all the growth of internet shopping we've seen in the last few years. So people still want to go into store and have that store experience. So we shouldn't lose sight of it, but I suspect that AI will have an impact on the way people are used in shops.
Absolutely. And I imagine they'll use them in combination. So you'll use AI to do the research, and then you might pop down to the shop to actually see it, feel it, try it on, whatever the
and I think that should be the focus for the small retailer. The small retailer should be looking to use AI. How do I bring people into my business? How do I make people aware of what I have? And what AI can do, I think, is actually help the smaller retailer reach out to markets it may not normally reach. And that's the way I would urge them to use it, because it's retailing. I think Melissa said it's all about understanding consumers. I think they understand the consumers already shop in their business. They need to better understand the consumers who don't shop in their business, and what can they do to bring those people in.
Definitely. And Thomas, on the discussion about, how should independent retailers think about AI in relation to their staff, do you think that's about replacing people or empowering them more?
Yeah, just going off what Andrew said, it's solely about empowering people. I don't think people should be replaced in the roles they have. Fair is one of the biggest concerns that we see when we speak to businesses across multiple sectors, regardless whether that's in any industry. There is a fair element, and we have to be honest about that. Now, the question is, okay, well, how do we deal with this fair element? And one of the ways of dealing with that is telling people, look, the roles that you're doing now, they're going to change in some way. But that doesn't mean because the roles are changing that you are not going to be there. Your values are still very much applicable. It's about how can we reskill you and put you in a position where your sort of role and the stuff that you've learned can still be applied. So I just wanted to kind of mention that point on the fair bit. And yeah, in terms of how AI can be used, like we always keep the human in the loop. So yes, AI can help you with your content writing. Yes, AI can help with your marketing. But at the end of the day, people by people, that's it. So we don't want to create a society where I'm going to shop with a company and then it's an AI that I'm speaking to. I still want the human-to-human connection. I still want to feel that I'm being heard, and I still want to feel that I'm being seen. Me personally, if I go to certain companies and I go and I see, okay, they got an AI chatbot, I'd like for them to at least tell me it's an AI chatbot rather than kind of mask it and say, oh, it's us, whereas I know that it isn't them. So the people bit of anything to do with an organization in AI must be put at the forefront, and it shouldn't go the other way around. Like we put AI first and then the humans.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I've been using AI bots over Christmas a bit with queries, and sometimes you don't know if it's a real person. So I'm just starting to ask, are you a bot or are you real? And then they have to answer.
It says I'm a real bot.
I'm a real bot, yeah. Because sometimes they give themselves names as well. So you're like, well, are you a human? Oh, yeah. So
There's one thing I do actually when I'm speaking to, I don't know if anyone else does this, but like if I'm speaking on a chatbot and I'm not sure if it's a human or not, I test the AI. So I ask it like a very random question, and I'll be like, what does this acronym mean? And I'll put like a emoji, and it'll be like, this means da 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 da. Like, okay, yeah, you're an AI bot. And sometimes it will be a human. I'll be like, oh, it just means laugh out loud. Surely, I'm like, yeah, you're human. So.
Yeah, it's a funny new world we're going into for sure. Melissa, you did mention actually about sort of inventory and stock management, which is a huge challenge for large and small retailers. And how do you think AI could help with those sort of buying decisions and stock control?
Yeah, it's an extremely useful tool there. So it can help retailers identify those patterns, what's selling quickly, what's taking more time to sell, where are people returning more frequently the items. So that data analysis can be leveraged by AI to then also be predictive and help retailers make buying decisions. So can help you avoid some unnecessary costs, dead stock, waste. So that's really helpful. And then, as I mentioned before, it can be a merchandising tool too, where it can help retailers quickly identify the item and then register that that item is in stock. So it's driving a lot of efficiencies for retailers and can save independent retailers a ton of time in that respect.
Amazing. And Thomas, we did touch on this, but what about marketing and sort of customer engagement, sort of huge cornerstones for independent retailers? How can they use AI to better understand and reach their customers, would you say?
Yeah, good point. And I'll name a few specific tools. And again, I'm not pushing any of them. So like a really good tool to kind of mention would be like Jasper. So Jasper AI is really good for marketing, and you can use it for SEO, you can use it for newsletters. And the way it's powered, it's specifically designed for content. That's literally what it's for. I mean, you can use something like ChatGPT. You can also use Claude. You can also use Gemini. I mean, Gemini is another really good tool as well. They've released a new model called Gemini 3, which is, again, another really powerful tool out there. So there are existing tools that are good for marketing. But I think one thing we need to be careful of is we don't want to outsource all our marketing to AI. And we don't want that. The reason for that is because we still want it to sound like us. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still train these AI models to sound like you, but at the end of the day, what makes you is unique. There's no AI tool that can replicate the uniqueness of you as an individual. Well, yes, it might sound like you, but there's more to you than just what you say, right? There's your tonality, your personality, sort of flares and touch that are very unique. So yes, there are AI tools that can be used. I've mentioned a few of them, but we still want to keep the person in the loop. And Jasper is a really good tool, I would say, for that. Another good tool actually to mention is maybe Notebook LM. So, I mean, if you're a small retailer and you want to repurpose your content, maybe you've got like blog posts, maybe you've got some videos, and maybe you've got some like internal files, you can use something like Notebook LM, which is multimodal, which basically means it just uses different sort of formats to kind of come to a conclusion. And you can chuck that into Notebook LM and repurpose your content. So that's kind of a way of bringing life to content which might be separated in different formats. You can just compile it into one and then repurpose that. So that's a free tool to use. It's still free now, surprisingly. I don't even know why Google have still made it free, but maybe at some point they might not. But it's a free tool to use, and you can like play around with it.
Okay, there are two I didn't know about. I'll have to take a note of those and have a look. Thank you, Thomas. Andrew, we've talked about the opportunities, but what would you say are the potential pitfalls? I mean, what should Bira members be cautious about when adopting AI?
Yeah, I guess it reminds me a bit when social media really took off, because suddenly everyone's a social media expert and wants you to use their services. And what we're seeing at the moment is a plethora of people claiming to be AI experts, I guess. And really, that makes people nervous, because that level of choice, that range of choice, is really difficult for people to navigate, especially if you're nervous in the first place about adopting a new technology. So I guess that those are the fears. I think Melissa touched on quite rightly the need to protect data. Customers are very wary of data protection, and Thomas has talked about the need to be authentic within that as well. So those are the pitfalls to avoid, I think, with adopting this new technology. it's easy to make mistakes. I don't think people should fear mistakes. I think they should quickly learn that you don't have to commit a whole load of money to make AI work for you. If someone comes to you and says, I can be your AI expert, it's going to cost you X, you don't actually need that straight away. And you can do a little bit of research yourself to test the water on it, to de-risk any decisions you may make in the future. I mean, we, as an organisation, we try to help members make the right decisions, I suppose, in this way. We have good information on our website, we've used content in our newsletters, podcasts like this obviously help as well, and we've partnered with Thomas's company because we feel that they have the right values that will help independent retailers as well in that respect.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andrew. And Melissa, your research found that data privacy is one of consumers' top concerns about AI shopping, with 41% worried about it, I think. And perhaps more significantly for retailers, excuse me, 83% say data breaches impact their shopping decisions. It's obviously a bit scary out there with recent examples. So that's a huge trust issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I always say with more data comes more responsibility. That data is the new power in retail, or has been for a while. And consumers are very concerned. And that's why Thomas was saying that transparent communication is so important from retailers. That's, I think, a new expectation that we really should be placing on them as they leverage AI and all different forms of technology, because consumers are conscious that their data is being collected and potentially used in ways they might not want or feel comfortable. So the onus is definitely on retailers to discuss that openly. And I've actually recommended in the past, and I still think it's a cool idea, is retailers could show 2 different websites or 2 different versions of a channel to the consumer and say, this is what it looks like if we don't use, generative AI, or this is what it looks like if we don't use AI. And this is what it looks like if we do. Pick your format, pick which one you're more comfortable with. And I think they'll see the benefits to the retailer using it. And then also they're in control, because a lot of times it really just comes down to the consumer wanting to feel in control.
Interesting. Thank you, Melissa. And Thomas, cost is always a factor for independent retailers, as I well know. Can you give us a realistic picture of what investment is needed just to start using AI effectively?
Yeah, good question. So just going again, bouncing off what Andrew mentioned around, like, if someone says AI expert, I mean, one thing, first of all, we don't even say we're AI experts. We just say, we just use the word like AI specialist. And I agree, like, there's definitely a push on that. But in terms of the cost, so one thing that when people say they are quote unquote AI experts is they will just push something to you and say, oh, yes, to get the most out of AI, you need, I don't know, £20,000 or £30,000 upfront. Now, for a large organization, that's like, yeah, that's nothing, right? We can pay that on one front. But for smaller organizations, that's like a big chunk of their budget. So one of the things you can use are a lot of free tools out there that you can just use. ChatGPT, Claude, Notebook LM, Perplexity, there's a whole list of them. But one thing that we're seeing, and this is actually part of our role, is people just need to know where to start. They literally don't know where to start. And one of the things that we focus on is like, okay, we're going to come into a business and show you the free ways like that you can use a lot of these tools. A lot of them have, you don't need to pay any subscription. Like I said, Notebook LM is still free now. They do change at some point, so maybe sometimes the price might go up. But for the most part, there's very little sort of upfront cost. Now, don't get me wrong. There are other tools that would require you to pay. So, for example, in terms of transparency and using something like ChatGPT, the free version is very, very different from the paid version. There's a whole difference in terms of the output you get, definitely in terms of the sort of data protection use cases. So that's something to be aware of, that yes, there are free ways of using these tools, but if you do invest a little bit of money, it can lead to a massive amount of gain. And that's what small investors should know. I just need to invest a bit of money in the basic stuff, and then from there, I can definitely reap the rewards later on in terms of my business.
Yeah, I mean, I think the basic ChatGPT paid version is only about £20 a month, which I think is pretty affordable for a small independent retailer. And also one of the things I've heard you talk about before, Thomas, is kind of having an AI policy for your company, and especially if you've got staff. I mean, it quickly becomes something of a grey area, and everyone's not sure whether they should be using it or should be using a certain app. Or I think that's also something independent retailers might want to.
And just bouncing off the AI policy bit. So one thing to mention is on the EU AI Act, and I would recommend, if you're a small business, any sort of business, it's good to know and understand what this EU AI Act is, and also understand and create a policy. It can be a very, very simple policy. Now, an example
AI could write it for you.
Yeah, AI could help you write it, right? It honestly can. But there are very, very simple ways of creating policies that just protect you as a business. So, for example, if you have a business and anyone's allowed to use any tool, that's a problem, because there are certain tools that have data safety concerns compared to other tools. Like, so for example, Copilot is GDPR compliant. You're pretty much safe using that. If you're using a tool like maybe DeepSeek, for example, people need to know, and employers should know, and retailers should know that it's using your data to train the model. So having some kind of guideline and framework, a very simple one, can protect you in the long run and make your business safe from attacks, which definitely we probably will be seeing in the future, like security attacks on small businesses because they've not taken the necessary steps to protect themselves when they're using AI.
Yeah, interesting. That's really useful. Thank you, Thomas. Melissa, sort of for you, looking ahead over the next year or two, what sort of AI developments should independent retailers be watching? What's coming that could really change the game, even though it's changing all the time?
Yeah, I think use cases for customer service are great opportunities. All of those merchandising efficiencies that can be driven, and marketing copy efficiencies for sure. I definitely echo Andrew's sentiment that it's not going to replace humans. It's just going to help them become more efficient and kind of free them up to do the jobs that are much more fulfilling for them and allow them more face time with the consumer. So there's a lot to pay attention to. It's a moving target, and the best advice I can give is just read up as frequently as possible to keep up, because it's quick moving for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Melissa. I'm going to just go to sort of our final points there. If perhaps each of you could give one of our listeners sort of one practical piece of advice about AI that they could act on, say, this week, what would it be? Same for you, Melissa.
I would say think of it as a democratization tool, like what TikTok has been. Think of it as a discovery tool. What Andrew mentioned before is so accurate. These retailers know their customers that are existing customers really well, but AI is going to afford them the opportunity to reach a whole new customer that they may not know currently, and provides them visibility through search to this new consumer that they might not be in touch with previously. So I would say, welcome it with optimism and embrace it as an opportunity for a new channel for reaching your customer.
Brilliant. Thank you. Andrew?
I think we've heard some really good advice today, some good ideas. I would urge that any retailer now to, if you haven't explored ChatGPT, if you haven't heard of Claude, if you haven't heard of Jasper, go and visit them, go and explore them, see what they can do. But above all else, be brave. This is important. Retailers are naturally brave. They just need to be brave enough to go and explore and see the opportunity that this technology, this accessible technology, easy to use technology, can really help their business.
Brilliant. And Thomas, coming to you, you might not have heard the question, but it was about giving our listeners one practical piece of advice about AI that they could actually act on this week.
Wow, that's a good question. So one thing I would say, and this is from the experience of working with multiple businesses, is start small. I wouldn't advise any business to let AI take a full sweep and sort of one lucky shot at revolutionizing your business. It won't, because businesses are complex. Start small with anything to do with AI. Test the use case. Make sure your customers are happy with it. Make sure your internal employers are happy and your employees are happy with it. And make sure it works before you roll it out. Because yes, AI is accessible but it's also powerful. And with that power comes responsibility, and we have to be responsible when using it. So I always advise any organization, especially retailers, start with the small things, build some trust, and then from there, you can start to see the benefits and then roll it out on a wider scale.
Brilliant. Thank you all for your advice there. So Andrew Goodacre from Bira, Melissa Minkow from CI&T, and Thomas Akintan from Avalon Insights. Thank you all for joining High Street Matters and for making AI feel so much more accessible and exciting. And thanks to you, our audience, for listening to High Street Matters, which is an original podcast series for Bira, the British Independent Retailers Association. If you found today's discussion helpful, you can find previous episodes by searching online for High Street Matters Bira and discover more resources at bira.co.uk. And remember, AI isn't just for the big players anymore. It's a tool that can help every independent retailer work smarter, compete better, and serve their customers in ways that were impossible just a few years ago. We'll be back soon with more expert insights to help independent retailers thrive on the high street. This was High Street Matters. Thank you for listening.